Many homeowners now in denial that their house is losing value. The housing market may have gone bust or melted down, but many homeowners are still living in a bubble. And despite dismal housing headlines and numerous reports showing falling prices nationwide, owners in some once hot areas still believe their home is gaining value, or at least holding its own somehow. And by hanging on to too high expectations, sellers are unwittingly keeping the market from finding a bottom, which makes everything even worse. Kind of like a spiral effect. Real estate professionals across the country are reporting increasing difficulty convincing sellers of true market value of their homes. It's like pulling teeth in this market, said one realtor in Kansas City, where prices are off between 7% and 15%. Even with everything being said, you still have people that think my house is better than everybody else's. And a recent Coldwell Banker report showed that more than 3/4 of its real estate agents surveyed said most sellers now have very unrealistic initial listing prices for their homes. And last week, or likewise, an unscientific study released by real estate website Zillow.com found that half of homeowners polled think their home's price has increased or stayed the same in the past year. We expected people to get a little more in touch with reality, especially over the summer, because you couldn't turn on the TV or read the newspapers without seeing that home prices are falling, said a spokeswoman for Zillow.com. She said it was very surprising to see this kind of disconnect. And that's what it is. There is a very serious disconnect going on here. And it's connected with everything. The politics, the climate change, the weather, the stock market. Everything is connected. Kind of like a spider's web. Yes? Or like the web. In fact, the median sales price of an existing home dropped at least 9% to $191,600 in September from a year ago, according to the National Association of Realtors. When it comes to the housing meltdown, there are no stupid questions. For instance, you can't be any dumber than a guy who makes $30,000 a year but has bought a $500,000 house, or the banker who signed the guy's mortgage, or an investment bank that thought bundling such deals together made buyers of bad credit less risky, or even regulators who thought investment banks or bankers were smart. I know this is ludicrous, if that be a word for it. And from all these stories, there's something bigger in all this going on. There's a disconnect all the way around. Yet, still, you're probably wondering about the same things we are. They're so simple, it's embarrassing stuff. Like this. Why on earth are we still building homes? There's at least a year's worth of new and used homes on the market now. About 10% of rentals and nearly 3% of family-owned homes around the country are empty. And those numbers are rising. Yet houses and condos are still going up. Another disconnection or disconnect. Like a chicken with its head cut off, new construction is slow to respond when things start to fall. It's taken 3 years. Prices started falling in many places in 2005, but builders finally have dropped production to 817,000 starts of new homes and apartments this year, a third fewer than a year ago and the lowest in at least 50 years. So the question is, why build at all? Insane or as crazy as it seems to keep on building, home construction is not a tap that turns on and off real fast. Just like the price of gasoline or the barrel of oil, or just like the prices of food at the grocery store. Things tend to go up a lot faster than they tend to come down for some reason, although We can also call that greed connected. Pure greed. Yes. A developer breaking ground has already invested in paying an architect and running an expensive gauntlet of governmental permits, reviews, reports, and consultants. Before construction starts, it costs thousands, sometimes even millions of dollars to grade a site and install sewers, roads, and water and power lines. And if you've already taken out a loan for a development, you've got to generate cash flow to keep up your payments. Maybe you build phase one and hope to get your money back from that. If you put it down and walk away from it, the chances are you'll never get it back together again. Yes, this is about greed, and all systems are becoming broken. In a few places, including the Carolinas, oil towns such as Wichita, Kansas, and Tulsa, Oklahoma, and much of Texas, demand is still fairly strong, for now at least. But even where there are too many homes or houses for sale, the houses on the market may not be the ones that buyers want. So builders are putting up single-level homes for retirees, for instance, or condos close to new light industrial parks or office clusters. With the mid-level housing market saturated, builders are concentrating mainly on two markets: luxury homes and cheap starter homes, but not much in the middle. Another question: do we simply have too many houses and homes? In a word, yes. The Census Bureau says the U.S. has about 128 million houses, condos, and apartments, but just 112 million households. Well, there's a disconnect there with the numbers, isn't there? So, is that a problem? You bet it is. We've got too much housing, and yet not enough housing that people can afford. There's the key sentence or question. The houses became too expensive. They were overpriced, overrated, and now things are having to come back to reality, because real change is coming. There are a lot of houses, but they're in places and in shape but people can't use them. Also, many who want to buy can't get a loan because credit is tight. These are among the drawbacks of free market economics or capitalism, and that is bad. In Soviet Russia, where the state owned the housing, planners, in theory anyway, could have shuffled people and jobs around to fill up those empty houses. It was supposed to have been a more efficient system, but as time showed, it had its own problems. Another wrinkle: even if all the empty homes were near the people who needed them, and of course they're not, their upkeep costs could be huge. Many homes for sale are just too big, too grand for the buyers. The heating and cooling bills, repairs, paint, gutter cleaning, re-roofing, and yard mowing could break many of the people who need homes. Even if you give them to them for free, there would be this problem. Yes, there are many problems with capitalism, with all the systems. And again, real change must come. It has to. Hundreds or thousands of foreclosed homes are raising concerns about a potential health issue because their abandoned pools can be nesting grounds for mosquitoes, carrying, of course, West Nile virus. What's affordable? Spending no more than 30% of your income on housing. By 2007, approximately 15% of Americans with mortgages were devoting half their incomes or more to home payments. Well, there's where a disconnect comes in again. A lot of disconnects. Affordability didn't seem like such a problem during the real estate boom of recent years, although wages were falling or flat. While cheap introductory mortgage rates were available, developers and buyers were lured not to the small, cheap thrifty homes they needed, but to what were essentially luxury digs or homes. It's happened before. In a lot of poor neighborhoods, there are mansions that have been turned into slums. You can see what it looks like when you build houses with the following generations, and the demand didn't or can't keep up. So, the foreclosed homes, there's more foreclosures to come, isn't there? And there's more to come in all this. And all these, yes, are more signs, the end times, transition days. Just watch the news. Look around.